Good morning. Welcome to Just for Today, a time of eclectic reading, sharing of perspectives, meditation, and prayer. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader at the newly joined Centers for Spiritual Living of Columbia and Greater Baltimore. Today is April 24th. And what is alive in me to read this morning? Pardon my book, it's falling apart. Comes from The Science of Mind, A Philosophy of Faith, A Way of Life by Ernest Holmes. And on page 423, he writes, Final conclusion. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principles than to have them repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. It is far easier to teach the truth than to practice it. But the practice of truth is personal to each. And in the long run, no one can live our life for us. To each is given what they need, and the gifts of heaven come alike to all. How we shall use these gifts is all that matters. To hold one's thoughts steadfastly to the constructive, to that which endures, and to the truth may not be easy in a rapidly changing world, but to the one who makes the attempt, much is guaranteed. The essence of spiritual mind healing and of all true religious philosophy is an inner realization of the presence of perfection within and around about. It is the hope of heaven, the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art that which I am. I read this at some point every day because it moves me and it reminds me, especially that the practice of truth is personal to each. It reminds me that spiritual conviction must be followed by spiritual experience, which tells me I have to do something with what I believe. That simply keeping it in the hamster wheel between my ears isn't really living a spirituality at all. It's avoiding spiritual truth. And I think sometimes we get stuck in the humanness of our feelings. And we get stuck in the lie that if it doesn't feel good humanly, that it must not be spiritual. And I don't think that's accurate. Ultimately, I don't know. But what I have experienced is some of the most deeply spiritual experiences I have encountered have come with a mixed bag of human emotions. And when I get underneath the emotion, what I find is exactly what this reading is talking about. I find that inner realization of the presence of perfection within and around about. That if I'm willing to go through my emotions, I get to spiritual truth. And if I'm unwilling to embrace my emotions as normal, healthy, necessary human process as part of my spiritual journey, my experience has been I continue to recreate those emotions until I get it. And then once that happens, I've learned this lesson. And I think sometimes we misinterpret that as some deity outside of us punishing us or hitting us over the head with a lesson. And my experience is that's just not the case, that I'm the one driving the lesson learning process. Um, and the more open I am, and the more I'm willing to explore with childlike curiosity and an open mind that is teachable, the more quickly I learn. Um, yeah, it's that part where we get off of the villain victim hero triangle and stop separating ourselves from our own process and our own journey. Nobody said it was easy, but it is quite simple. Um, and I think easy isn't all about interpretation, but that's a whole nother reading. Um, so, any thoughts that you would like to share on this reading, the final conclusion? Okay, if not, I'm going to read it again as we to take into our time of meditation. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction followed by spiritual experience. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principles than to have them repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. It is far easier to teach the truth than to practice it. But the practice of truth is personal to each, and in the long run, no one can live our lives for us. To each is given what they need, and the gifts of heaven come to all alike. How we shall use these gifts is all that matters. To hold one's thought steadfastly to the constructive, and to that which endures, and to the truth, may not be easy in a rapidly changing world, but to the one who makes the attempt, much is guaranteed. The essence of spiritual mind healing and of all true philosophy is an inner realization of the presence of perfection within and around about. It is the hope of heaven and the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art. Thou art that which I am. I recognize the presence of the one internal, external, everywhere presence. One love, one life, one peace, one power, one substance that is the source of all, one creation that is expressing in individualized forms of itself, one wholeness, one body, many cells, many functions, many organs. However we language it, one. And it is expressing itself, its idea of itself, as the idea of Rafe, as the form of Rafe, as the life of Rafe. There is one life. That life is creation itself, life itself. Life is my life. Love is my life. Peace is my life. Abundance is my life. And what is true of me is true of all creation. And so everywhere I look, life is available for me to see and experience. Love is available for me to see and experience. Peace is available for me to see and experience. Even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of poverty, even in the midst of sadness and anger and frustration, joy, love, peace, abundance are present. Even in the situation that in my humanity I deem the stupidest of situations, infinite intelligence is operating. And it is only my interpretation and perception of a thing that separates me. And so I claim and affirm that today I live in unity, in the unity that already is, in the inseparable unification of one. That I live as a divine idea of life made manifest in form. And that I live with the realization that as I am that, all is that. And so I live in communion with life itself, with love itself, with God itself, with Buddha itself, with Allah itself, whatever name we use. This nameless being simply is. Unlimited by a name, unlimited by a concept. I allow myself to experience it anew today. To experience more of it than I have ever experienced before. To allow my inner dialogue to shift in personal ways that recognize that inner and outer relationship with a source, a substance, a being that is never separate from me. I allow myself to converse in a manner that my brain may think is separate, while I know that I am not. I embrace, I embody the wholeness, the completeness, and the perfection of life. And I allow myself to experience the fullness of that. And I am grateful. I'm grateful for the precision, for the accuracy, for the unbiased, the truly neutral, unbiased activity of law. It simply receives and acts upon and makes it so, leaving me to accept full responsibility, knowing that it is my belief that is creating my experience. Grateful for the full cycle of life. Grateful. So knowing it's complete, knowing that life responds with mirror accuracy, I accept and affirm that every experience I have today is of my creation, my choosing in this earthly realm. I accept responsibility, knowing that I get to change as many times as I choose to change. And so I receive the blessing of reflection today. I receive the gift of demonstration today. And I accept the responsibility of the birthright within me to use all that creation is in support of the desires that awaken in me to express. And so I let go, knowing it is already complete, knowing that the doer of creation, the soul of creation, the activity of law has already responded yes, has already made it so, with no assistance from the human me. I say yes to expressing, to experiencing what has been made manifest. And so I let go and I step fully into the experience of the day with deep, deep gratitude. Ashe. Shalom. Aho. Amin. Amen. And so it is. Namaste.